The politics of Somalia have gone through various periods of change. Following the outbreak of the civil war and the ensuing collapse of the Siad Barre regime in the early 1990s, Somalia's residents reverted to local forms of conflict resolution, consisting of civil law, religious law and customary law. A few autonomous regions, including the Somaliland, Puntland and Galmudug administrations, emerged in the north in the ensuing process of decentralization. The early 2000s saw the creation of fledgling interim federal administrations. The transitional national government was established in 2000, followed by the formation of its successor, the transitional federal government, in 2004, which re-established national institutions such as the military of Somalia. In 2006, the TFG, assisted by Ethiopian troops, assumed control of most of the nation's southern conflict zones from the newly formed Islamic Courts Union. The ICU subsequently splintered into more radical groups such as Al-Shabaab, which battled the TFG and its AMISOM allies for control of the region, with the insurgents losing most of the territory that they had seized by mid-2012. In 2011-2012, a roadmap political process providing clear benchmarks leading toward the establishment of permanent democratic institutions was launched. Within this administrative framework, a new provisional constitution was passed in August 2012, which designates Somalia as a federation. Following the end of the TFG's interim mandate the same month, the federal government of Somalia, the first permanent central government in the country since the start of the civil war, was also formed. The nation has concurrently experienced a period of intense reconstruction, particularly in the capital, Mogadishu. Political history. Transitional federal institutions. The transitional federal government was the internationally recognized government of Somalia until the 20th of August 2012, when its tenure officially ended. It was established as one of the transitional federal institutions of government as defined in the Transitional Federal Charter adopted in November 2004 by the Transitional Federal Parliament. The Transitional Federal Government officially comprised the executive branch of government, with the TFP serving as the legislative branch. The government was headed by the President of Somalia, to whom the cabinet reported through the Prime Minister. However, it was also used as a general term to refer to all three branches collectively: Islamic Courts Union and Ethiopian intervention. In 2006, the Islamic Courts Union, an Islamist organization, assumed control of much of the southern part of the country and promptly imposed Sharia law. The transitional federal government sought to re-establish its authority, and, with the assistance of Ethiopian troops, African Union peacekeepers and air support by the United States, managed to drive out the rival ICU and solidify its rule. On 8 January 2007, as the Battle of Ras Kamboni raged, TFG President and founder Abdullahi Yusuf Ahmed, a former colonel in the Somali army and decorated war hero, entered Mogadishu for the first time since being elected to office. The government then relocated to Villa Somalia in the capital from its interim location in Baidoa. This marked the first time since the fall of the Siad Barre regime in 1991 that the federal government controlled most of the country. Following this defeat, the Islamic Courts Union splintered into several different factions. Some of the more radical elements, including Al-Shabaab, regrouped to continue their insurgency against the TFG and oppose the Ethiopian military's presence in Somalia. Throughout 2007 and 2008, Al-Shabaab scored military victories, seizing control of key towns and ports in both central and southern Somalia. At the end of 2008, the The group had captured Baidoa but not Mogadishu. By January 2009, Al-Shabaab and other militias had managed to force the Ethiopian troops to retreat, leaving behind an under-equipped African Union peacekeeping force to assist the transitional federal government's troops. Due to a lack of funding and human resources, an arms embargo that made it difficult to re-establish a national security force, and general indifference on the part of the international community, President Yusuf found himself obliged to deploy thousands of troops from Puntland to Mogadishu to sustain the battle against insurgent elements in the southern part of the country. Financial support for this effort was provided by the autonomous region's government. This left little revenue for Puntland's own security forces and civil service employees, leaving the territory vulnerable to piracy and terrorist attacks. On the 29th of December 2008, Abdullahi Yusuf Ahmed announced before a united parliament in Baidoa his resignation as president of Somalia. In his speech, which was broadcast on national radio, Yusuf expressed regret at failing to end the country's 17-year conflict as his government had mandated to do. He also blamed the international community for its failure to support the government, and said that the Speaker of Parliament would succeed him in office per the charter of the Transitional Federal Government, coalition government between the 31st of May and the 9th of June 2008. Representatives of Somalia's federal government and the Moderate Alliance for the Re-Liberation of Somalia group of Islamist rebels participated in peace talks in Djibouti brokered by the former United Nations Special Envoy to Somalia, Ahmadu Ould Abdullah. The conference ended with a signed agreement calling for the withdrawal of Ethiopian troops in exchange for the cessation of armed confrontation. Parliament was subsequently expanded to 550 seats to accommodate ARS members, which then elected Sheikh Sharif Sheikh Ahmed, the former ARS chairman, to office. President Sharif shortly afterwards appointed Omar Abdirashid Ali Sharmaka, the son of slain former President Abdirashid Ali Sharmaka, as the nation's new prime minister. With the help of a small team of African Union troops, the coalition government also began a counteroffensive in February 2009 to assume full control of the southern half of the country. To solidify its rule, the TFG formed an alliance with the Islamic Courts Union, other members of the Alliance for the Re-Liberation of Somalia, and Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, a moderate Sufi militia. Furthermore, Al-Shabaab and Hezbollah Islam, the two main Islamist groups in opposition, began to fight amongst themselves in mid-2009. As a truce, in March 2009, Somalia's coalition government announced that it would re-implement Sharia as the nation's official judicial system. However, conflict continued in the southern and central parts of the country. Within months, the coalition government had gone from holding about 70% of south-central Somalia's conflict zones, territory which it had inherited from the previous Yusuf administration, to losing control of over 80% of the disputed territory to the Islamist insurgents. During the coalition government's brief tenure, Somalia topped the Fund for Peace's Failed States Index for 3 consecutive years. In 2009, Transparency International ranked the nation in last place on its annual Corruption Perceptions Index, a metric that purports to show the prevalence of corruption in a country's public sector. In mid-2010, the Institute for Economics and Peace also ranked Somalia in the next-to-last position, in between war-afflicted Iraq and Afghanistan, on its Global Peace Index. During the same period, the UN International Monitoring Group published a report claiming that the Somali government's security forces were ineffective and corrupt, and that up to half of the food aid that was destined assistance for the conflict-stricken parts of the country was being misdirected. It also accused Somali officials of collaborating with pirates, UN contractors of helping insurgents, and the Eritrean government of still supporting rebel groups in southern Somalia despite earlier sanctions imposed on the former. Somalia's government and local businessmen, as well as United Nations officials and the Eritrean government, all emphatically rejected the report's claims. In 2010, reports surfaced linking the secessionist government of the northwestern Somaliland region with the Islamist extremists that are currently waging war against the transitional federal government and its African Union allies. Garo Online reported in October that Mohammed Said Atom, an arms smuggler believed to be allied with al-Shabaab and who was on UN security watch lists, was hiding out in Somaliland after being pursued by the neighboring Puntland region's authorities for his role in targeted assassination attempts against Puntland officials as well as bomb plots. Several of Atom's followers were also reportedly receiving medical attention in the region, after having been wounded in a counter-terrorism raid in the Galgala Hills by Puntland security personnel. According to Puntland government documents, the Somaliland region's real government in 2006 both financed and offered military assistance to Atom's men as part of a campaign to destabilize the autonomous territory via proxy agents and to distract attention away from the Somaliland government's own attempts at occupying the disputed Sul province. The Puntland Intelligence Agency, a covert organization supported and trained by U.S. counter-terrorism agencies based in Djibouti, also indicated that over 70 salaried Somaliland soldiers had fought alongside Atom's militiamen during the Galgala operation, including one known Somaliland intelligence official who died in the ensuing battle. The following month, the Puntland government issued a press release accusing the incumbent Somaliland administration of providing a safe haven for Atom of attempting to revive remnants of his militia. Several top commanders in the al-Shabaab group, including former leader Ahmed Abdi Godane, are also reported to hail from the Somaliland region, with Godane quoted as saying that al-Shabaab insurgents should not interfere in Somaliland until Puntland is destabilized first. Reforms. Somalia's coalition government enacted numerous political reforms since taking office in 2009, with an emphasis on transparency and accountability. One of its first changes involved ensuring that all government institutions, which had previously been spread out in various areas throughout the country, were now based in Mogadishu, the nation's capital. The Central Bank of Somalia was also re-established, and a national plan as well as an effective anti-corruption commission were put into place. In July 2009, Somalia's transitional federal government hired global professional services firm PricewaterhouseCoopers to monitor development funding and serving as a trustee of an account in Mogadishu for the security, healthcare and education sectors. This was followed in November of that year with a $2 million agreement between the government and the African Development Bank, which saw Somalia re-engage with the AFDB after nearly 2 decades of interruption. The grant is aimed at providing financial and technical assistance specifically to develop a sound legal framework for monetary and fiscal institutions and human and institutional capacity building, as well as to establish public financial systems that are transparent. Similarly, the autonomous Puntland region's new administration, which took office in early 2009, has also implemented numerous reforms such as the expansion and improvement of its security and judicial sectors. According to Garo Online, to bolster the region's justice system, numerous new prosecutors, judges and other court personnel as well as additional prison guards were hired and trained. In July 2010, the Puntland Council of Ministers unanimously approved a new anti-terrorism law to more efficiently handle terror suspects and their accomplices. A special court is also expected to be established within the region's existing criminal court system to facilitate the task. Fiscally, a transparent budget-based public finance system was established, which has reportedly helped increase public confidence in government. In addition, a new regional constitution was drafted and later passed on the 15th of June 2009, which is believed to represent a significant step toward the eventual introduction of a multi-party political system to the region for the first time. Such a system already exists in the adjacent Somaliland region. More modest reforms were also put into motion in the social sector, particularly in the education and healthcare fields. The regional government has hired more healthcare workers and teachers, with major plans underway for school and hospital renovations. One of the most significant new reforms enacted by the incumbent Puntland administration is the launching in May 2009 of the Puntland Agency for Social Welfare, the first organization of its kind in Somali history. The agency provides medical, educational and counseling support to vulnerable groups and individuals such as orphans, the disabled and the blind. PASWE is overseen by a board of directors, which consists of religious scholars, businesspeople, intellectuals and traditional elders. 2010 to 2012 government. On the 14th of October 2010, diplomat Mohammed Abdullahi Mohammed was appointed the new Prime Minister of Somalia. The former Premier Omar Abdirashid Ali Sharmaka resigned the month before following a protracted dispute with President Sharif over a proposed draft constitution. But the transitional federal charter of the Somali Republic, Prime Minister Mohammed named a new cabinet on the 12th of November 2010, which was lauded by the international community. As had been expected, the allotted ministerial positions were significantly reduced in numbers from 39 to 18. Only 2 ministers from the previous cabinet were reappointed: Hussein Abdi Halain, the former Minister of Finance, and Muhammad Abdi Ibrahim Al-Usana Waljama, a moderate Sufi group and an important military ally of the TFG, became Minister of the Interior and Labour Ministries. The remaining ministerial positions were largely assigned to technocrats new to the Somali political arena. Additional members of the Independent Constitutional Commission were also appointed to engage Somali constitutional lawyers, religious scholars and experts in Somali culture over the nation's upcoming new constitution, a key part of the government's transitional federal tasks. In addition, high-level federal delegations were dispatched to defuse clan-related tensions in several regions. According to the Prime Minister of Somalia, to improve transparency, cabinet ministers fully disclosed their assets and signed a code of ethics. An anti-corruption commission with the power to carry out formal investigations and to review government decisions and protocols was also established to more closely monitor all activities by public officials. Furthermore, unnecessary trips abroad by members of government were prohibited, and all travel by ministers required the Premier's consent. A budget outlining 2011's federal expenditures was also put before and approved by members of Parliament, with the payment of civil service employees prioritized. In addition, a full audit of government property and vehicles is being put into place. On the war front, the new government and its AMASOM allies also managed to secure control of Mogadishu by August 2011. According to the African Union and Prime Minister Mohammed. With increasing troop strength, the pace of territorial gains is expected to greatly accelerate. On the 19th of June 2011, Mohammed Abdullahi Mohammed resigned from his position as Prime Minister of Somalia. Part of the controversial Kampala Accords conditions the agreements or the mandates of the President, the Parliament Speaker and deputies extended until August 2012. Abdiweli Muhammad Ali, Mohammed's former Minister of Planning and International Cooperation, was later named Permanent Prime Minister. Post-transition roadmap as part of the official roadmap for the end of transition, a political process which provides clear benchmarks leading toward the establishment of permanent democratic institutions in Somalia by late August 2012. Somali government officials met in the northeastern town of Garo in February 2012 to discuss post-transition arrangements. After extensive deliberations attended by regional actors and international observers, the conference ended in a signed agreement between TFG President Sharif Sheikh Ahmed, Prime Minister Abdiweli Muhammad Ali, Speaker of Parliament Sharif Aden Sharif Hassan, Puntland President Abdurrahman Mohammed Farol, Galmudug President Mohammed Ahmed Alaman Alu Suna Wal Jama Representative Khalif Abdul Qadir Noor, stipulating that a new 225-member bicameral parliament would be formed, consisting of an upper house seating 54 senators as well as a lower house. 30% of the National Constituent Assembly is earmarked for women. C. The President is to be appointed via a constitutional election, and D. The Prime Minister is selected by the President and she then names his/her cabinet. On June 23, 2012, the Somali federal and regional leaders met again and approved a draft constitution after several days of deliberation. The National Constituent Assembly overwhelmingly passed the new constitution on August 1, with 96% of the 645 delegates present voting for it, 2% against it, and 2% abstaining. To come into effect, it must be ratified by the new parliament. Concurrent with the end of the TFG's interim mandate on August 20, 2012, the Federal Parliament of Somalia was inaugurated, ushering in the federal government of Somalia, the first permanent central government in the country since the start of the Civil War. On September 10, 2012, Parliament also elected Hassan Sheikh Mohamud as the new president of Somalia. President Mohamud later appointed Abdi Farah Sheridan as the new Prime Minister on October 6, 2012. On November 4, 2012, Sheridan named a new cabinet, which was later endorsed by the legislature on November 13, 2012. At the behest of Somalia's federal authorities, the 15-member UN Security Council unanimously approved Resolution 2093 on March 6, 2013 to suspend the 21-year arms embargo on Somalia, the oldest such global weapons blockade. The endorsement officially lifts the purchase ban on light weapons for a one-year period, but retains certain restrictions on the procurement of heavy arms. The repeal is slated to be reviewed in 2014. In November 2013, President Mohamud asked Prime Minister Sheridan to resign from office on the grounds that Sheridan was allegedly ineffective in the job. Mohamud was reportedly acting on the advice of the State Minister for Presidency, Farah Abdul Qadir. On the 12th of November 2013, Sheridan confirmed that there was a dispute between himself and the President, but indicated that the row was constitutional rather than political. He also asserted that the matter should be resolved in Parliament. According to MP Mohammed Abdi Yusuf, the rift between Mohammed and Sheridan centered over through what constitutional mechanism and by whom the cabinet was ultimately to be formed. On the 24th of November 2013, 168 MPs led by former TFG Parliament Speaker Sharif Hassan Sheikh Aden endorsed a document submitted to Parliament, which outlined a motion against Prime Minister Sheridan's administration. A parliamentary vote of confidence was later held against Sheridan on the 2nd of December 2013. Parliament Speaker Mohammed Osman Jawari subsequently announced that 184 of the present MPs had voted against Sheridan, whereas 65 legislators had voted to retain him. On the 5th of December 2013, Sheridan released a statement confirming that he and his cabinet accepted the legislature's decision. UN Special Representative for Somalia Nicholas K. paid tribute to the outgoing Prime Minister, noting that Sheridan had endeavored to promote growth and progress and was an important principle in establishing the New Deal Compact between Somalia and its international partners. He also commended the legislators on adhering to procedural rules during the vote, and pledged to work constructively with the succeeding administration. On the 12th of December 2013, President Mohammed named Abdi Weli Sheikh Ahmed as the new Prime Minister. On the 17th of January 2014, Ahmed named a new, larger cabinet consisting of 25 ministers, with only 2 council members retained from the previous Sheridan administration. Parliament later approved the cabinet on the 21st of January 2014. In October 2014, Prime Minister Ahmed made a minor reshuffle of the cabinet which President Mohammed immediately rejected. The ensuing rift ended on the 6th of December when Parliament held a vote of confidence vis-à-vis the Premier and his cabinet. 153 of the present MPs voted in favour of the motion, 80 voted against it, and 2 abstained, thereby ending Ahmed's term as Prime Minister of Somalia. On the 17th of December 2014, President Mohammed appointed former Premier Omar Abdirashid Ali Shamaka as the new Prime Minister. On the 24th of December, the National Legislature approved the nomination of the 224 MPs present at the parliamentary session. 218 voted in favour of the appointment, none rejected it or abstained, and 6 left the hall. On the 12th of January 2015, Shamaka announced his new cabinet, consisting of 26 ministers, 25 deputy ministers, and 8 state ministers. Many ministers were retained from the previous Ahmed administration. Shamaka indicated that he selected the new Council of Ministers after intensive consultations with local stakeholders, with the aim of balancing the public interest with governmental continuation and administrative priorities. On the 17th of January 2015, Prime Minister Shamaka dissolved his newly nominated cabinet due to vehement opposition by legislators, who rejected the reappointment of certain former ministers. At Shamaka's behest, the federal parliament concurrently granted him a time extension to engage in further consultations before was to select a new council of ministers. On the 27th of January 2015, Shamaka appointed a new, smaller 20-minister cabinet. On the 6th of February, Shamaka finalized his cabinet, consisting of 26 ministers, 14 state ministers, and 26 deputy ministers. Federal legislators later approved the new Council of Ministers on the 9th of February, with 191 voting in favor at 22 against it, and none abstaining. On the 11th of February 2015, the federal parliament during its 5th session approved the Independent National Electoral Commission. 113 MPs voted in favor of the bill, 21 against it, and 10 abstained. The president is now slated to sign the new law. Executive branch, legislative branch. The Federal Parliament of Somalia is the national parliament of Somalia. Formed in August 2012, it is based in the capital Mogadishu and is bicameral, consisting of an upper house and a lower house. Political parties and elections. Administrative divisions. Somalia is officially divided into 18 regions, which in turn are subdivided into districts. The regions are: international organization participation. Somalia is a member of ACPFDBFESDALEMFCAUECA G77 IBRDICAOICRMIDRIDBIFCIFRCSIGADILOIMF IMO Intelsat Interpol IOCIO MITU NAMO AUO ICU UNCTAD UNESCO UNHCR UNIDO UPUWFDU WIPOWMOWTRO